I know there was one player that you highlighted a lot in your drafts, and you know who I'm talking about.
Ashton Jeanty, unbelievable. I mean, the arc that we've gone on with Ashton Jeanty has been absolutely phenomenal. All I kept saying was, be patient. Let's see what it is. And lo and behold, 6 hours later, oh, it's a sprain.
Welcome, everybody, and hello for another episode of Under the Hoodie. I am Scott Hoyt, your host of Under the Hoodie and the founder of Fantasy Sports Strategies, who also produces the show. I would be extremely remiss if I didn't start this episode with the question, what did I do this past weekend? Well, let me tell you, I just got back from Las Vegas, where I spent the weekend at National Fantasy Football Draft Day, surrounded by maybe some of the most passionate fantasy football players, analysts, personalities in our entire business. And what an experience. And I'm sure that I will talk to my guest about this at some point. And all throughout the lens and the vision of four most respected names in our industry: Rick Wolf, Ed Bunnell, Ian Ritchie, and Bill Enright. And I'm telling you, they gathered this community as they said they would for a weekend of celebration. And in one of the most iconic, I think, sports venues anywhere, the Circa Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. And my guest today played a vital role in making this weekend very magical for a lot of people. So after spending the weekend together in Las Vegas, there was really no better time to get his perspective and taken and there was a ton of energy to reflect on what matters most heading into this season. And he'll talk about players he loves. And I know there are a few that he loves because I watched him draft on several occasions throughout the weekend. So I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that. But before we get into all that, I think it's important that I have to say this because one of the great things about being part of this fantasy football industry and this industry in general is the relationships you build along the way. And over the last several years, today's guest and I have gone from fantasy football junkies to what I genuinely call a friendship. And I thank him for that. And he is one of the most respectable, recognizable, and trusted voices in fantasy football space. Award-winning fantasy alarm and part of the fantasy football programming at SiriusXM, award-winning analyst, and award-winning all-around great person. He's been doing this for a long time, folks. He knows his stuff, is never afraid to tell you exactly what he thinks. And this is the third appearance on Under the Hoodie, a first for our show. Howard Bender, my friend, welcome back to Under the Hoodie.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I chose not to wear my Fantasy Sports Solutions, sports strategies jersey today or sweatshirt today because the last time I was here and I wore it, I got a bunch of crap for that. They're like, you don't wear the concert shirt to the group you're going to see. So I just went all blue. But oh my God, dude, thank you so much for having me. What a weekend, right? What
Unbelievable,
a weekend.
Wasn't it? I know you and I have chatted on many occasions during the weekend, but I'd love to have our listeners and you get your perspective on the weekend. Tell me what your thoughts were.
I mean, listen, for the first time doing an event like this, it was fantastic. Everybody I talked to had a great time. Obviously, are there things that we're going to be able to do better next year? 100%. 100%. But my goodness, I saw Adrian Peterson signing player cards, signing jerseys, signing helmets.
I got to interview him. I was so cool.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I did.
I mean, he was so great, right? He really was. He was so welcoming with the community. That was phenomenal. Austin Ekeler was running around there just interviewing all these people. Now, I've interviewed Ekeler 3 or 4 times now on SiriusXM. And when he saw me, he was like, can I actually interview you this time? I was like, yes. It was unbelievable. I think that the fans had a really great time because, I mean, there were nothing but drafts like throughout the day. I think I drafted 7 leagues, 7 teams, in 2 days of just kind of going through it there. And then there was just, it was just, to me, it was an unbelievable time because there was so much interaction and there was so much fun, and everybody loves all the smack talk during drafts and stuff like that. Then we had the parties, and Trophy Smack had all the games and stuff like that for us there. We're hanging out at Stadium Swim. I mean, I was emceeing the party on Friday night, right? Running around Stadium Swim. I was like, wow, you guys really want to give me a microphone right now? Okie dokie. So I think everybody had a fantastic time. And what I'm most excited about is just how unbelievable next year is already fixing to be.
Yeah, and it's funny because I exchanged a couple of text messages with Rick this morning, just talking about, just things in general and thanking him for the opportunity to be there. And I told him, I said, listen, I think this thing is going to be so much better than this year. And this year was great. I think you have built your brand equity immediately, and people were going to, and I think what they wanted to create, and I think they accomplished this, is that whole FOMO fear. People who weren't there, who should have been there or wanted to be there, they will be there next year for sure. I know I will be there if God willing, and I'm sure you will as well.
Oh, I'm definitely going to be there. I've already gotten like a bunch of text messages from people today. I was going through it, and I sent a copy of a couple of the messages to Rick and the guys. I was like, I was like, the FOMO is definitely real. Everybody was, really sad about missing out. So, but it was great. It really was, because not only that, but I was also hanging with like a lot of industry people, having some really great conversations, guys like Adam Ronis, Dwayne McFarlane, Brad Evans was there. You had Jen Piacenti, Ryan Hallam. It was just an unbelievable crew of people who were just there to draft and have fun. And isn't that what we're all about here anyway, Scott?
Well, and that's the thing is, and you and I've talked about this, and it's so evident when you go to something like this. While we're such a large industry, it's a very small community when people get together like this, because it feels like you haven't seen somebody for years, and you gather and you laugh and you draft and you draft and you draft. And that's what united everybody, was really the drafts part of it. And then the social gathering and talking about that. And I think they certainly exceeded my expectations. And the only thing that I was troubled by is that I had sweats throughout the 2 days because I couldn't draft because I was filming. And so I wanted to come home today and do about 5 best balls just to get it out of my frickin' system.
You had to do it, man. You had to do it. It was like, we were literally sitting there. If you weren't drafting, you were like, you were jonesing.
Well, I was hovering over you guys all the time thinking, oh, I just want to jump in. Please let me just jump in. All right. And I'm sure we'll talk about this ad nauseum throughout this next 40 minutes or so. But I do want to talk about the NFL season, because I think you've got some great opinions on this. I want to kind of get your points of view, but let me step back for a second. And I know that in your drafts, I know there was one player that you highlighted a lot in your drafts. And I know we got some new news about him this morning. Hopefully it's a little bit better than what we feared yesterday. So fingers crossed. And you know who I'm talking about.
Dude, Ashton Jeanty, unbelievable. The arc that we've gone on with Ashton Jeanty has been absolutely phenomenal. Just in the last, I would say, 10 days. Because here's what happened. And people don't realize this. Now, first and foremost, I love Ashton Jeanty. Because
I know I saw you draft him all over the place.
All over the place.
You could. Yeah.
But see, here's the thing. Insert running back's name here is really what it comes down to, because it doesn't matter if it's Ashton Jeanty or if it's, I don't even know. Take your pick, whoever the running back is, working with Clint Kubiak and Rick Dennison. That's what it all comes down to. And I was talking to Ekeler about this, and he was like, yeah, Joe Lombardi did amazing things for me. If you know the coaches and you know the schemes, then you know which players you want to start targeting. So Ashton Jeanty was a big priority for me this season. But what happened was about 10 days ago, we did a SiriusXM host league draft. And Jeff Manns from Fantasy Guru and Elite Sports on the radio, he took Ashton Jeanty at the 2 spot. No, he took him at 2. So first person went Jahmyr Gibbs. He went Ashton Jeanty. And then third was Bijan Robinson. And it broke the internet. Like that draft board went viral, over 1 million views on that. And then like to the point though, where you saw the next day, ESPN, Barstool Sports, they all of a sudden started like airing all these promos of this guy took Ashton Jeanty #1 overall. This guy, and all of a sudden they realized all the clicks that the Ashton Jeanty hype was really getting. They started to make it even bigger and bigger. And so you look at what the ADP was just over in this short time, is that all of a sudden everybody was taking him #4, #5. Like they weren't waiting until the tail end of the first round, which is something that a lot of people were doing about a month or two ago. So he's crept up, more and more, into that spot. And I think that that's really that got everything a little bit crazy right now. The funny thing is that, so I got home. All right, we're going to talk about this whole thing here. So here's the story. Are you ready for this one, Scott?
I'm ready.
My flight out of Vegas was 6 a.m. on Sunday morning. So I was like, oh, okay. I got to fly back to Alaska, man. You got to make the appropriate arrangements there. So I was at the airport, and it was crazy. It was like 5:30. I busted through security, and I got there, and my whole gate area, the whole wing was dead. Nobody was there. I was like, oh man, did they like change it? And I'm like, no, I'm probably really early. So I'm sitting there at my gate, and I'm like just wiping crusties out of my eyes and stuff like that. And over there I see, this one slot machine amongst this group of slot machines.
Oh, I saw this. Oh my God, I saw this. Oh.
And it starts twinkling like just a little bit differently than the other slot machines. And I was like, I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, did my sleep gummy just kick in or something like that for the plane ride? Am I just because I didn't go to bed? What's going on here? And that slot machine was calling me, Scott. So I walked over there and I put $100 bill into that slot machine. And by the time it was all over, I cashed out. I won $700, right? I'm like, over the moon here. So now I've done this whole amazing weekend. I just won $700 at an airport slot machine. I get onto the plane. The dude who's sitting in the window seat, right? I'm on the aisle, turns to me and says, this middle seat, it was supposed to be my wife, but she stayed back in Vegas with her friend. So there was nobody sitting in the middle seat. It was the greatest thing ever. Boom. Then I got off of that plane in Seattle, and I basically walked, 30 feet onto the next plane, like my connecting flight, boop, no waiting, sat down, beautifully sweet couple next to me. They were in the middle seat, but this dude must have weighed, like $110. He was tiny. So I had all the room there, and then I get home, and my favorite place out here is doing this smoked lamb gyro special for the day. Man. So I tell my wife, I'm like, well, I didn't eat well at the event, so get me 2 of these. So I have 2 of those. I'm sitting at home, and then that's when the Jeanty news broke, right? I was like, all of these wonderful good things, everything's coming up Bender. And then boom, Ashton Jeanty, and everybody freaked out. And for those 6 hours yesterday that I was home and everybody was flipping out, all I kept saying was, be patient. Let's see what it is. He couldn't put any weight on. Let's just see what it is. Because like I know, guy tears his ACL. Yes, he's in pain. But a guy I've seen Jamal Anderson. I've seen Terrell Davis. I've seen these guys walk off the field with a torn ACL. The fact that we weren't hearing anything and that nobody was speculating torn ACL, whatever, just had me telling everybody, be patient, be patient. And lo and behold, 6 hours later, oh, it's a sprain. So now I think that his ADP is going to go back to probably where it belongs, like for the layman, right? For me, I'll take him fourth overall. I don't care still. But for everybody else, now you're talking about tail end first round, early second, maybe depending on, how many, weeks he could miss. But even if he misses like 3 or 4 weeks from now, maybe it's a week or two in the season, I'll still take him there. Tail end of the first, early second round, no doubt.
I'm guessing that if, and the only reason I know this is because I went on a couple of my leagues where waivers are open right now. And the minute I saw that news, where do you think I went?
Mike Washington.
Where's Mike Washington? Where's he? And I was able to pick him up, and I dropped a guy for Washington. And then the news came out. Regardless, Washington's going to have a decent role there at some point. But
sure,
I was just thrilled that we got the news that it was an ankle. We don't know if it's high ankle or not. So, but I didn't. Everyone speculated, and you know how that goes. The rumors can fly very quickly. So it was really good to get that news. All right, so
I'm sorry I had to make you endure that entire story, but I mean, it was just...
You know what's funny? I saw the post, and I was laughing because all I saw was the slot machine post. I didn't know that you had a great flight experience, and then you get to Seattle and you go 30 feet to a gate. I can tell you my flight experience. I left at 8 o'clock, not as early as you did. I had to fly in through Charlotte, and my gate, I entered gate B10, had to go to E21, and as you're walking down the terminal, it says, walking 21 minutes. So, the good news is I had an hour 10-minute layover, and I think it took me all of about half of that just to, and like you, I was starving because other than I did have a nice steak that night, but as you know, the food was not eaten well at the event, which that's okay. I don't think you go for the food, right?
No, I wasn't there for the food. I was, you know what? And there's another thing I said. I turned to Rick and I said, you know what? Waiters and waitresses walking through the draft room. Can I get you something to eat? Can I get you something, or just a runner? It doesn't even have to be an employee there. Just a runner that says, okay, I'll go down and I'll get, this or this, or I'll have them, show that. Like if that happened, yeah, I definitely would have been better. I was like sitting there. And look at me, man. I'm a fat guy, man. I need my sustenance.
Yeah, I think that everyone was looking for food. They would have made a ton of money. You could have just had a cash bar there and just like a little food truck or something like that. I guarantee you somebody would have made a lot of money on that. So, all right. I know we digress. It was a great event. I'm glad you won some money. And because I don't know if my wife asked me, how much did you gamble while you were there? And I said, I didn't spend 5 minutes on a machine or at a table. So I just didn't have the time. You know how that 2.5 days went by so fast. It just went by fast. But again, it was a phenomenal event, great celebration, and kudos to those 4 gentlemen that I talked about earlier. Let's talk about the NFL season. And we just kind of brought up Jeanty's name. And when I was thinking about when I was going to talk to you, I thought, let me talk to him about, we've seen so much this offseason. There's always players jumping off the rankings on the draft boards. And I knew that Jeanty was going to come up, and now we had that news. I'm still going to ask the question. Take Jeanty off of the equation here. Which players have moved up your rankings the most and why?
The funny thing is I haven't really adjusted my rankings all that much because, I bake a lot into my rankings. I bake a lot of my own personal speculation, what I think is going to happen. Right. And so when you're looking at my rankings, I say this all the time at the tail end of the first round. If you can walk away at the tail end of the first round, first and second round, if you can walk away with any combination of Jeanty, James Cook, Chase Brown, Omarion Hampton, Kenneth Walker, if you can get 2 of those 5 guys, I mean, you are definitely on easy street. And I have those guys ranked accordingly, because of that. I mean, are there guys like I like Stephon Diggs and his ADP has climbed up, to a point where, I mean, I've seen him go anywhere between the 8th and the 10th round is really where I've seen Diggs go. And I think he belongs there, right? I would do that. I would actually, and I'll tell you what, because you want to talk about a guy who's moving up boards everywhere, DeJon Stribling.
I knew that was coming. I
right?
know. I love
I'll take.
Strickland. I love him.
I do too, but I'll also take Stephon Diggs over DeJon Stribling because Diggs, is going to be the number 2 target there on the Commanders behind Terry McLaurin. Stribling still has Mike Evans there. He still has Deebo Samuel there. They're bringing back George Kittle. I think he just came off the PUP list. So, like, all of a sudden now it's like, everybody sees Stribling doing what he's doing. I'll take Stephon Diggs because of the role that he's got, not the role that he's playing here during camp.
Yeah, I love Stribling. I took him in a best ball about less than a week ago, and I drafted him in the 11th round, and everyone kept sending me a message. Oh, what a big reach. What a big reach. Now you can't get him in the 11th round. You're going to have to take a 7th or 8th round pick to get him. Hey, you talked about something that I have seen quite a bit so far this year, and maybe more so than years past, but maybe I'm not thinking, about the past too much. But running backs, especially based on where say your draft slot is in the beginning of the draft, you have one strategy. Towards the end of a draft, you have another strategy. And what I mean by that is if I'm drafting in the 10, 11, or 12 spot in a 12 team, I'm thinking I have to walk away with an RB1 on one of those first 2 picks. Have to. And in some cases, if you're drafted in the first 2 rounds, you better walk away with at least one running back. And I'm seeing that trend. And that's why all those running backs that you just mentioned, and maybe a few others, are just flying off the board late other than Gibbs and Bijan and now Jeanty, are flying off the board in the middle of the first round, the end of the first round, early second round. Is that a new trend, or is that just something that it's happened every year like this?
No. I think this is a return to an older trend. Actually, this is what was it, 2023 at the height of the zero RB phenomena. You had in 2022, we were, Andrew Cooper and I were analyzing ADP trends from over the last couple of years to try and, kind of figure things out as far as like what direction did we want to go, because we're both of that mindset of, running backs at the tail end of your draft, those 2 guys right there, gives you such a great 1-2 punch, but where do you go afterwards, right? Do I go full robust RB and start taking a 3rd or a 4th, like Rick Wolf and Glenn Colton with their smart system? They'll take 3 running backs in their first 4 picks. What we've kind of learned here is that we're actually in a very similar spot with all the ADP trends that we were in 2022, the year before all of the zero RB stuff kind of blew up. So what we're looking at here is, people in 2022, they were going so heavy RB, right? And they were doing like what Glenn and Rick do. And they were bulking up. It was the people who got the 1-2 punch, but then pivoted over to wide receiver and started taking the Devontae Smiths and Lad McConkeys and Zay Flowers, like that, the Tedero McMillan, that kind of level of wide receiver. So what I've traditionally been doing now is I've been doing the 1-2 punch at the back end of the draft. I've been doing that 1-2 punch of making sure that I grab those 2 guys, and then I'll hit 3 straight wide receivers. But if I'm picking in the beginning of the draft, you don't have that second running back falling to you at that point. So like picks 1 through 3, 1 through 4, what I'm doing is I'm taking that elite running back, but then I'm coming back here and I'm double tapping wide receiver, or I might make a move to Josh Allen as my quarterback there in round 3. And then I'll go back and I'll look at rounds 4 and 5, because you're still getting your David Montgomerys and your Jonathan Brookses. Like those guys are all there at the beginning. So I feel fine because Bijan and Jameer are so upper echelon, I feel fine waiting on, my second running back here, as my RB2, just because I think there's bigger value at wide receiver or even quarterback at that point. It's the middle of the draft where things get a little murky.
Yeah, that's, it's funny because I never really worried too much about my draft slot, because I think, I think drafts aren't really typically made in the first 2 rounds.
Right.
You win a lot of your drafts with your depth in the middle rounds. But for whatever reason, this year, my strategy is I hate the middle part of the draft because I don't know if I want to take a flyer on McCaffrey. Do I take that risk? Do I go? I mean, after Chase and after Jamar Chase and Puka and JSN, and even JSN's got some questions about it. Do I go there? So you start asking all these questions, and in the middle of the round, if you take a receiver, elite receiver, if you get them, what are you going to get on the return? It's probably not going to be an elite running back because the Chase Browns and the Taylors and even the Barkleys are gone by that point. They're gone. And so now you're stuck with, do you go receiver, and come back and get a Kyron Williams or Montgomery in the fifth? And so I don't like the middle part of the draft. I really love the end of part of the draft this year because of what you just talked about. I think you could go running back. And I saw a lot of drafts with, what was that I saw? I saw Taylor and Chase Brown. I saw Brown and who else did I see? Well, it's some crazy.
Yeah, Brown and Walker is a big one.
Walker, yeah. I mean, just some great picks. We were talking about players who've moved up the rankings, but there's one player that seems to continue to stay down in the rankings, and I don't understand it. And I want to get your thought on this, and that's Justin Jefferson. Jefferson, what is the theory there? Because I didn't see him taken. Maybe the earliest I saw him taken in the drafts this weekend was at the 10 spot. And I saw him go as late as the 18th spot. Did you hear what he said today? Because at the end of the season, I will be the number one receiver. I don't doubt that.
I don't
either. He's got the talent. So what's going on? Why are people fading this guy?
People are why they're fading him now, I don't know. I mean, if you've got limited faith in Kyler Murray, if you're one of those people who likes to post, GIFs online of a baby running around, like an infant running around and being like, oh, here was Kyler Murray at practice today. Like you've got it in your head that he's too small, that he's not going to do anything or whatever. But this dude's got a cannon for an arm. And you know what? Kevin O'Connell knows how to handle his quarterbacks, right? He knows how to just kind of get into their heads. Sam Darnold, when he was in San Francisco and he learned that system, that Shanahan way of getting the ball out quickly and getting into the hands of your playmakers so that when he went to Minnesota, O'Connell didn't have to do like a complete makeover of him. O'Connell was like, okay, you know what you're doing now. Now make it happen. And look what happened with him and Jefferson. So I think, and Kyler Murray's ADP is not climbing either. He was named the starting quarterback, and his ADP isn't climbing either. And I'll tell you what, man, if I'm picking, 7, 8 in there, I would kind of hope that Jefferson were to come back to me. Like I know that, depending on who I'm drafting with, 10, 11, 12, those picks will probably be, that's going to be like a block of running backs right there that they'll do for the most part. If I could get Jefferson there in the second round as like the 9th pick in the draft, I would smash that one like ridiculously. So
yeah, I saw him drafted at least once this weekend at the middle of the second round. I just shook my head. I just like, whoa, are you kidding me? I participated at the FSGA experts draft this year. That was in the 14th spot. I know you saw my draft because you commented on it. But at 14 drops Jefferson to me. I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to drop. And guess who on the turn I can get Chase Brown. So I can start with Jefferson and Chase Brown. I'm feeling really good about things. So if I can walk out of a draft with Jefferson and Chase Brown, I'm going to be real happy, especially if at the end of the back side of that. Hey, one of the things that I was going to ask you about, and I forgot to ask you this weekend, I'm going to ask you now, is that there was a stat that on first round, and I want to pull it out here real quick. First round, and we'll just use 12-team PPR as the context.
Mm-hmm.
The percent of production that you don't get from first round picks, the 12 guys that are picked the first round. I saw a stat that said one out of every 3 players did not live up to the production that they were drafted in the first round.
Yeah.
I gotta believe that stat, right?
It makes sense. It really does. I mean, when you think about what the expectations are. I mean, God love the projections analysts out there who, get all bullish on players and start projecting them to do things that they've never done before. Yeah, I think, because I think we talked about this the last time I was here, right? We can give you the pros and cons list of every first round player.
Sure.
And we could probably hand you more cons than pros. So to see, 30% of the top of the first round is all, that's the hit rate. That really doesn't surprise. Does it scare the life out of me here as I'm sitting here thinking about all the first round picks I've made? But yeah, I mean, that's just, that's the way it is. Because it's like you said, your draft isn't won in first round.
That's right. The depth is all about it right there. Yeah, you're right.
How many times do I say people like sending me screenshots of their teams and stuff like that mid-draft, and I'm like, stop. Everybody loves their team 5 rounds in.
Sure they do.
Show me 15 rounds in, and then we'll talk.
Yeah. It's funny because I've said that for a long time, that the middle rounds and your depth strategy is what's going to make your team. Because can you overcome a bust in the first round? I've done it, and people do it. They do it with depth. So, but you hate to see it. That's why I hated to see Jeanty with that news, and let's hopefully that is better news than not. Hey, speaking of the first round, is there a player in that first round that you think you're most confident will deliver on their ADP? I mean, it gives it the 1.1. Are you confident they'll deliver on that? Are you confident that Puka would deliver on the 1.4 or 1.5? Anybody in there that says you're confident with that?
I think
know you said Jeanty if it wasn't Jeanty's hurt, but
no. I think the guy that I'm most, because I mean, that's a legitimate question. Like, I'll take Jeanty because of what I think he can do.
Sure.
But if you're asking me who is the safest pick in the first round, where he's going, I'll say Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah.
I think he's going, like 7th, 8th in the first round there. I know Drew Petzing's system. He knows Jared Goff. We know, that he gets targets funneled to him on the regular. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is, in a new scheme, new system, Jared Goff is going to lean on his go-to guy. So that's the guy who I think.
And I think he can. In my mind, you could take him as high as 5.
Sure.
And be very comfortable with that. I really do. I would take there's situations that I would take him over JSN, frankly.
No question about it. I mean, listen, if I'm saying the top 5, right, you got to go, you go Bijan, you go Gibbs, you got Chase. And then for me, it's Jeanty and Amon-Ra.
Yeah. And I just don't, I mean, Puka's a great talent, and I might be wrong on this one. I just don't have the vibe on Puka. I'm not sure I have the vibe on JSN. I might be wrong on both of those. I know I was wrong on JSN last year because he was drafted in 3rd round. If people recall, he was, of his ADP was in 3rd, and people who drafted him in the 3rd got a steal. So, which tells me this year you could find a JSN in the 3rd round. I guarantee you can, somewhere along the way. And speaking of that, is there any, I know you talked about scribbling a little bit. Is there any one player kind of your favorite potential breakout player? Doesn't need to be a rookie, but just in general. Do you have anybody in mind?
I don't know if you saw the news today, but I've been making a very, very similar pick in almost every draft I've done so far in the past 2 weeks, because I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. The moment that Jaden Higgins went down, I knew Houston.
We talked about this.
We did. I said that Keyshawn Boutte would be an amazing fit for the Texans.
And where does he show up today?
Right? Got traded to the Texans today in exchange for a safety and like a conditional 7th round pick or something like that. Because listen, he doesn't need to be this electric superstar. This is a last round pick in your drafts, unless you're in a draft right now with somebody who is like super savvy and is up on everything right now, because this news is also flying under the radar today a little bit. And, in the last couple of rounds of your draft, you're looking for a wide receiver who's going to be, who has the potential of being just a big boom kind of guy. And that is going to be Keyshawn Boutte. I've taken him in a bunch of spots here. I'll probably start looking for him somewhere around the 13th or 14th round in my draft because, that's the best part also about the late season move here. Every draft room you go into, he's buried. He's buried in the ADP.
Yeah, in redraft leagues, he's not even being drafted. On best ball is a different story, but it's funny because I'm the three redraft leagues that three of my leagues that are redraft have waivers open right now. I put in 3 waiver claims for guess who? Keyshawn Boutte. Every one of them today I put them in.
All right, let me ask you a question then. Rank these 3 wide receivers for me. Are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Keyshawn Boutte.
Yeah.
Dejon Stribling. Jacoby Lane.
Well, I think for me, I would go Stribling because he reminds me of Terrell Owens, and then I would go Boutte because he's in Texas, and so Lane, yeah, he's not in a bad situation. I like him, but you got other guys in that system. I don't know, so that's where I rank him.
Got other guys in that Baltimore system. Rashad Bateman's going to jail, buddy. He's going to the clink.
Well, I still think they're going to be a run-dominant team. I still think that. I mean, assuming Henry stays intact, but I do like him. And if you were to give me those 3 players on my team, I'd be thrilled with that.
Oh, what a great trio of wide receivers for late round picks. Absolutely.
Oh, I know. And that's, again, we could talk all day about, the depth of your team really matters in all this. So another thing another fun fact for you, I want you to respond to this. I know we talked about it a couple months ago, as a matter of fact, and I think it's starting to play out a little bit even more so. But we had 45 changes at head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. 45. That is a lot. And so pluses and minuses of where these went, who does it impact, how does it change draft strategy? Is there any, and I know you're going to talk about the Chargers, everybody does. Outside of the Chargers, where are the other impacts that you think are positive and then some negative ones as well?
Well, just to talk about what we were talking about with Baltimore, right? The Ravens defense, to me, with Jeff Hafley now running the show. I mean, listen, we like Baltimore, and you and I can sit here and talk about Declan Doyle till the cows come home and Ben Johnson's tree in the McVay tree. Yes, absolutely. The defense, though, with Jeff Hafley running the show, I think that's going to be a nice little super sleeper because they also have the week 13 bye, which means you can draft them for nothing and then just leave them in there. And then you don't have to sit there and play defense roulette and stuff like that, So I think that's a good spot. Kubiak and Dennison in Las Vegas is obviously a huge one there as well. Wait a sec. You know what? I'm gonna pull this up right here while I'm talking to you because I did the full coaching tracker.
Oh yeah.
In our in the Fantasy Alarm draft guide, which basically was just a matter of me just kind of marking this for everybody and just saying, hey, this is something you need to pay attention to here. And I didn't exactly rank them as in my favorite to my least favorite, but obviously, I dropped in some information that, some people, might not really understand with, some of the coaching changes that have happened here. So let's see.
Well, the other thing too, is you're looking through that is, and I had this conversation, I think, with Dave Kluge at Football Guys over the weekend. And it's not just the coaching changes. A player could have gone to a different system, i.e. Kyler Murray.
Oh,
Kyler Murray gets the quarterback whisperer in Kevin O'Connell. So so you could talk about those types of things as well.
Oh, well, then I don't have to look anything up because I could turn around to you and say, stop drafting Travis Etienne where he's being drafted. I actually had a really good, here's my name drop. I was talking to Austin Ekeler about coaching movement around the NFL. And I had said something he had asked me. The question he asked me was, what's the first thing that you do as far as research goes?
Yeah.
And I said to him, I start off with who are the new head coaches and who are the new offensive coordinators. And he was like, really? And I was like, yeah, I mean, you take a look at what, Jeanty could do this year with Kubiak and Dennison. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, like me with Joe Lombardi. And I said, yeah, what's kind of funny is, just tell you a quick story here, Austin. In 2023, there was a contingency of SiriusXM listeners trying to get me thrown off the air because I didn't rank you in my top 5 among running backs. You were coming off of a career year with Joe Lombardi as your offensive coordinator, and Kellen Moore was coming to town. Kellen Moore doesn't like throwing to his running backs. And you can look at that, like you can mark it, right? When he was with Dallas, and everybody complained that Tony Pollard wasn't seeing any passing at work at all. Then he goes to LA and he ruins Austin Ekeler, right? Then he goes to the Eagles, right? And Saquon Barkley has the lowest number of targets in his career in any year like that. And then, you go down to New Orleans now. So, he likes a good power runner. And I just don't know if Achane has like the build or the endurance to be that between the tackles power runner. Yeah, can he do the outside zone work? Sure. Obviously he can. But this guy's not going to catch passes. And I think that what we could see is something that we actually witnessed with Jahmyr Gibbs last year. Towards the tail end of the season, all of that power running between the tackles wore him down. If you look at his game log over the last 5 or 6 games, regular season and playoffs, Jahmyr Gibbs' numbers were not Jahmyr Gibbs outside of a 3-touchdown outlier where he still only had like 40, 50 yards or something like that game. Outside of that, I mean, his numbers weren't really that great. So how is Achane going to Etienne, that dude, like, what are we looking at here? That concerns me a lot.
Yeah, it's so, you talked about, I asked Austin Ekeler. I got great advice. What I do is I tell my friends, I said, I got it from Howard Bender. And that's where I get my information from.
Do not. You're such a liar. Dude, I got that trophy right back there. It says it was for like celebrity draft winner. I'm like, the fact that y'all are referring to me as a celebrity is ridiculously comical. First and foremost,
you know what? I listen. I watched it play out again this weekend. You are one of the most approachable guys I've ever met in this industry. You are an expert in everything you do, and you're just a genuinely great guy. So we'll stop with the accolades for now, but we'll come back to those in a second.
Please, knock it off.
Speaking of drafting, when you draft, and I know you do it on drafts like I do, what influencers do you use when you get to like the 5th or the 6th round? And you go, okay, it's between player A and player B. Do you look at things like injury history, age, usage, where new coaches, playoff schedule? People sometimes use playoff. Is there anything in particular which is your one item that says, okay, if I'm going to cut between player A and player B, this is what I'm going to do?
I mean, great question, because I don't think a lot of people actually think that way. I think they just go through rankings and they say, I want this guy, I want that guy. What I do and what we teach over at Fantasy Alarm is, we basically, Andrew Cooper named it the yin yang draft strategy, right? Because what does everybody say when they're drafting? I want upside. Or I want floor. I want a high floor player. And that's what I do. When I'm in rounds like 6 through 11, what I'm looking at is the guys who I have at the top of my list, the guys who are locked in. Are they high floor players with high ceilings? Are they, am I taking a guy did I draft Christian Watson, right? Who we expect to have a high floor because they got rid of all those wide receivers, but let's face it, the dude's got a crunchy Cheeto for a hamstring, and we don't really know what's going on there. So, if I take a guy like that, so I look at the rest of my team and I say, is this high upside guy? Is this safe floor guy? Do I need more safe floor? If I'm looking at it for a wide receiver here, do I need more targets or can I swing for the fences? And I think that's kind of, with running backs, for me, it's always about who's got the touches, right? Who's touching the football. But when it comes to like wide receivers and tight ends, how much risk do I want to endure here? How much, do I swing for the fences like that? So when I look to them and I say this is their floor versus this is their ceiling, that's the main tiebreaker for me. Does it fit with my team? Do I have too many shoot for the moon kind of guys and I need like a Khalil Shakir or a Wan'Dale Robinson?
And there's a couple in the first round that you could certainly make an argument that you need the high risk. I mean, McCaffrey to me is at the top of that list, and he's typically, here's a guy who had more touches than anybody last year. He has it. You don't want to talk about injury history. He has it. He's got the age. They said today, they expected him to be out for a week so that he could play, be more refreshed. I don't believe that story 1 minute. I do believe that he was banged up, and that's how they were going. That's how they were going to treat it. Anyway.
Perfect. He's the perfect example. If you draft Christian McCaffrey versus, let's say, you draft Jonathan Taylor, right? I mean, because I think that's a pretty very stable versus high injury risk. If I draft Christian McCaffrey, I'm taking Ramondre Stevenson. If I'm drafting Jonathan Taylor, I'm going to take a shot on Trevion Henderson. It's like that kind of a dichotomy with your picks.
That's a good way. Good. A couple of fun questions I always like to ask. I asked several analysts this weekend. Who's the one person you never want to sit next to sitting at a draft? Is it Bob Harris or is it somebody else?
Oh. I mean,
or is it your partner Jim Bowden?
Oh, no. I'll say this without naming names. But there is an analyst who was at this event this past weekend who I love. I absolutely love. But he knows everything. And he knows what is right. And if you think that you know the right answer, no. He knows the right answer. I do not want to sit next to the know-it-all. Not because, obviously I don't want to hear just the diarrhea of the mouth, but like, I like to have fun at a draft. And if I'm sitting next to that guy, it frustrates me. It gets me, it annoys me to the point where I don't get to like just have fun with the draft, because if I say something, I know that this Yutz is going to say something to counter it just because he's the smartest guy in the room. I hate sitting next to the guy who thinks he's the smartest guy in the room.
Oh, okay. That leads me now with my next question, because this is always a fun one too. Okay. So when you are drafting, and I'm assuming you're drafting with, people that are, are friends or you want to beat them, what's more important to you? Having the best team or beating your friends?
Ooh. I mean, I guess I got to say it depends on the friend, right?
Yeah,
if I'm sitting there and I'm like, if I'm talking to my buddy Sherm, I want the best team, right? And that's if I'm talking to my friend John, I just want to beat him. I just want to beat him. Like, so yeah, that's that's a tough question to really like give you the full answer, but I think you know where I'm coming from here.
I do, because I'm in a couple friends leagues, so that I'm actually commissioner of a family league, and both my daughter have won it, my wife's won it. I have never won it in 13 years, so I'm really pissed off about that. And then I'm a commissioner of a league here with all my golfing buddies, and I just want to beat them. I don't really care who has the best. I just want to beat them. So I get that. So
I guess, you know what? Adam Ronis.
Aha.
I just want to beat him. Doesn't even have to be with the best team. I just want to win.
All right. So, I asked this question from you last time we met, and I know your answer, and I know it won't be the same. Plant the flag guy. Who is it?
Ooh, plant the
I knew who it
flag.
was right after the draft. You remember the name you gave me? I won't embarrass you because it's not a good name right now.
No. Tell me, what was it?
It was Rondé Gatson because that was before Njoku had signed.
Yeah, that was.
We have that on film. Trust me.
But you know what though? Ronnie Gadsden's technically not out of it.
I don't disagree with that.
We don't know what David Njoku's doing, but yeah, that was definitely my my plant the flag moment there for sure. All right, so I guess I'm gonna have to say, who is a plant the flag kind of guy now? Goodness. Could it be anybody, or do you want like a deeper? Do you want a deep cut?
Anybody you want. I don't care.
Boy, I tell you, just on the spot here for this one. Let's see. Do I plan my flag? Because I think I've kind of told everybody like who all my guys are at this point. So I'll say that I'm gonna now plant my. You know what? I'm gonna plant my flag in Isaiah Likely. I'll go with another tight end here. I'll go with a guy who I think is really going to be the beneficiary of Wan'Dale Robinson leaving. Like Malik Neighbors is going to see double-digit targets no matter what. Absolutely. But I think for Jackson Dart to successfully run this offense, if he's not, because they have talked to him about, kind of going through more progressions as you're running the field, because we do want you ultimately to throw rather than take these hits. But, I think he's going to lean a lot on Isaiah Likely in that vein, because they don't have a short yardage guy. They don't have a, hey, throw it to him, no matter what, right? You remember like Mohamed Sanu? You knew, like even the announcers were like, here we are at the 30, it's third and Sanu. So, I mean, like, I think Likely could be that guy. So if you're in a PPR format and the top 7 or 8 tight ends come off the board, do not worry at all. Get yourself into the Isaiah Likely business.
Yeah, I've always liked him, and no pun intended, but he's out of the shadows of Mark Andrews. My only concern is I cannot stand Matt Nagy as an offensive coordinator. So that does concern me a little bit. So, but we could talk forever on that one. So before we start to finish up here, Howard, tell me, because I know that what you guys are doing with the Fantasy Alarm and some of the resources you guys have, I want my listeners to know, where do they get all these resources?
Okay.
Because they're very good.
I mean, I'm primarily at Fantasy Alarm, right? I do some stuff over at, like RT Sports, and I do some, live streaming and stuff like that for them. I write for the New York Post as well. Follow me on all my socials at RotoBuzzGuy. Come to fantasyalarm.com. Yeah. And that's the place to be. Our draft guide is there, my cheat sheet, my rankings, premium access. Like you get the All Pro subscription, right? And you're with us the entire season. You're hanging out in our Discord, and you're messaging me all of your questions, not just your once a week start sit kind of a thing. Like, I got questions about waivers. I got questions about this. I think that's probably one of the most amazing aspects of Fantasy Alarm. The content's first rate. Andrew Cooper, John Mpemba, Dan Malin, the whole crew is just absolutely phenomenal. This crew's been together for years, like a decade now. And that says a lot to me. What it is, though, is it's the community. It's the fact that our subscribers come to us, right? As, we know the deal. I say it all the time, right? Here's the tagline. You can't spell family without FA. Yeah, and that's really what it is. I want you to be able to think that you can message me at any time of day, anytime at night. I will get to those questions, right? I'm not going to be awake at 3 a.m. Well, maybe I will, but if you've got that concern at 3 a.m., know that, at 7 o'clock in the morning when everybody's waking up, somebody's going to come answer that question for you. Somebody's going to help you out with what you need. So it's fantasyalarm.com /show, SHOW. And use the promo code SHOW, SHOW, and that'll get you 50% off your first month right off the bat. Take us for a spin on the cheap. Get everything that you need over there. Draft like a perfect time to do it right now, because now you're getting the guide and everything else in there that's been updated. So I think that's where you want to be if you if you want to win your championship. Some of you might be allergic to winning. If that's the case, go somewhere else.
Now, I can attest, it's some of the best content around and some of the best people around. And I love Fantasy Alarm and all the people that are there, as you know. And so can you take just 2 seconds to talk about Beat Howard Bender in some of the tournaments that you're doing, Beat Howard Bender tournaments?
Absolutely. So here you go. Over at rtsports.com/Bender. There are 2 buttons that show up on the screen right there. Number 1 says deposit. And if you use the promo code Bender, you'll get a 50% deposit up to match deposit up to $500. So they got that going. The other button says draft against me. It's a $20 best ball tournament, $20 per entry. It's a $10,000 grand prize. It is, it's fantastic. And I'm drafting all over the place. Like, people have, there have been Howard Bender draft sightings in, I would say, maybe at least 20 of these drafts that we've gone through, just so that, I'm like competing against everybody. I think actually you met Joe Jacoby at the event at Draft Nation 2026. He was last year's winner of the Beat Howard Bender tournament. So it's rtsports.com/Bender. Draft against me. It's $20. It's a 10-team best ball. You win money if you win your division, but then it also goes into a giant overall tournament for a $10,000 grand prize, which is great.
And it's funny because I watched a couple of the drafts where you were kind of the analyst to beat. There was 11 other guys after you on that draft, and it's kind of fun. All the banter that went back and forth. That was another part of the fun weekend that we just had. And so, speaking of fun, Howard, this is always a lot of fun when I can sit down and, as you call it, chop it up with you. It's one of the reasons why I love having you on Under the Hoodie. You've been not only a great friend, but our relationship goes beyond fantasy football, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you. I feel the same way. I really do. I was so psyched when I saw you. I was a little disappointed that you didn't hand me a Fantasy Sports Strategies little hoodie that you had going on there.
Well, I told you that I will order one and you will get it. I promise.
Oh, I know. I just had to make sure I said it again.
Oh, yeah, it's on my trust me. It's on my list. Yeah. Howard, thanks again for joining me on your 3rd appearance of Under the Hoodie. Again, I always appreciate your honesty and the laughter and, of course, our friendship. So thanks again.
Thank you. Listen, to me, Scott, this is what it's all about. It's all about carving up, friendships with new people that you've never met before in your life. And yeah, I mean, I don't remember the first time that we actually met at an FSGA event, but I mean, we talk pretty regularly now, don't we?
We do, and I do remember the very first time. It was actually at an FFPC event. You know that story. I drafted.
That's right.
You were interviewing people, and you and Boutte interviewed me. You looked at my draft. I was wearing a Bears something.
That's
and
right.
You looked at me, and I tell the story to everybody. I looked at me. He says, "You're a Bears fan?" "Yeah, I am." "And why do you have a bunch of Lions and Vikings on your team?"
What kind of a pessimistic fan are you? That's right.
It's one of my favorite stories. I remember that. That was many years ago, and so I just wish that you could get out to FFPC one of these days and do it again. So,
well, now you sound just like I introduced you to her, Angela Polini.
Yes,
who was scooting around at the event.
She's great.
I met her at that same FFPC event that I met you.
Yeah, she is great. So again, Howard, thanks again, and to everyone listening or watching. Hopefully, this conversation, as it always does with Howard, gave you a few things to think about, because he always has a few things to say. And make sure that before you're on the clock, check out Fantasy Alarm, because they'll give you all the information you need. And as always, thanks to everyone for listening. Be sure to subscribe, share this episode, and thanks for going under the hoodie with us. We'll see you guys all next time.